The sun was setting over the small town of Maplewood, Vermont. Orange and purple lights hung across the main street. Paper bats dangled from shop windows. Carved pumpkins sat on every doorstep, their faces glowing in the fading light. It was October 30th, and the whole town was getting ready for Halloween. Sheriff Danny Carter stood in the town square, checking his watch for the 10th time. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. Today those eyes showed worry. The government had called him 3 days ago with unusual news. Aliens were coming to Maplewood. Real aliens from another planet. They wanted to learn about human holidays, and somehow his little town had been chosen for the visit. Danny looked up at the sky. The stars were starting to appear. Then he saw something else. A light much brighter than any star was moving across the sky. It grew bigger and bigger. The light came closer, and Danny could hear a soft humming sound. People on the street stopped walking. They all looked up. The spaceship was silver and shaped like a smooth oval. It made no loud noise as it lowered itself down into the town square. The humming stopped. Everything became quiet. Danny took a deep breath and walked toward the ship. His hand stayed near his belt, but he kept his face friendly. Behind him, Mayor Kevin Baines and teacher Lisa Monroe followed. Lisa carried a basket of candy and wore a nervous smile. A door opened on the side of the ship. Bright white light poured out. 5 figures stepped onto the ground. They were tall, taller than any human. Their skin was pale blue and seemed to glow slightly. They had large eyes that were completely black. Their bodies were thin with long arms and legs. Each wore a silver suit that looked like liquid metal. The first alien stepped forward. He raised one hand in greeting. Danny did the same. The alien spoke, and his voice came from a small device on his chest. The device translated his words into English. "I am Ambassador Crix of Zephron. We come in peace to learn about your culture. Thank you for welcoming us." Danny shook the alien's hand. It felt cool and smooth. "Welcome to Maplewood, Ambassador. I am Sheriff Danny Carter. This is our Mayor Kevin Baines, and this is Lisa Monroe, a teacher at our school." The other 4 aliens introduced themselves. There was Scientist Ven, who carried several strange devices. Security Officer Thal stood very straight and kept looking around carefully. Junior Diplomat Zara had curious eyes that looked at everything. Communications Specialist Oren held what looked like a recording device. Ambassador Crix looked around the town square. His black eyes studied the Halloween decorations. He pointed at a large plastic skeleton hanging from a lamppost. "What is the meaning of this display? Is it a warning of danger?" Lisa laughed softly. "No, not at all. These are decorations for Halloween. It is a holiday we celebrate tomorrow. We put up fun, scary things to make people smile." Crix tilted his head. "You display images of death and danger to create happiness? This is difficult to understand." Mayor Baines cleared his throat nervously. "Perhaps we should show you to your quarters first. You must be tired from your journey. Tomorrow we can explain everything about Halloween." Security Officer Thal stepped forward quickly. He pulled out a device and pointed it at a large fake spider web on the nearby building. The device beeped and flashed. "I detect no actual threat. However, I recommend caution. These humans have placed threatening symbols everywhere." Danny spoke calmly. "I promise you, everything here is safe. The scary decorations are just for fun. No one is in any danger." Young Zara moved closer to a carved pumpkin sitting on the steps of the town hall. She bent down to look at its glowing face. "What is this orange object? Why does it have a face cut into it?" "That is a jack-o'-lantern," Lisa explained. "It is a pumpkin, a type of vegetable. People carve faces into them for Halloween. We put candles inside to make them glow." "Fascinating," said Scientist Ven. He pulled out a device and scanned the pumpkin. "You destroy food to create temporary art? What is the purpose?" "It is tradition," said Lisa. "We have done it for many years. It makes people happy. It is part of the holiday spirit." The aliens looked at each other. They seemed to be communicating silently. Finally, Ambassador Crix spoke again. "We have studied your human holidays from data files, but experiencing them in person is very different. We wish to observe this Halloween celebration. Will you allow us to stay and learn?" "Of course," said Mayor Baines, looking relieved. "We would be honored. Halloween is tomorrow night. You will see everything. Children will dress in costumes and collect candy. There will be games and a big party in the town square." "Costumes?" asked Zara. "You mean disguises?" "Sort of," said Danny with a smile. "People dress up as monsters, heroes, animals, or anything they want. It is all pretend. Just for fun, communications specialist Oren spoke for the first time. And this candy you mentioned? What is its purpose? Lisa held up her basket. Candy is sweet food that we give to children on Halloween. Here, try some. She offered the basket to the aliens. Oren carefully picked up a chocolate bar. He examined it closely, then touched it to his translator device. The device beeped. He slowly took a small bite. His large eyes widened. This is remarkable. The taste is very pleasant. What do you call this? Chocolate, said Lisa, smiling. It is one of the most popular Halloween treats. Oren took another bite. May I have more of this chocolate? Everyone laughed. The tension in the air began to fade. These aliens might look strange, but they seemed friendly enough. As they walked toward the town hall where the aliens would stay, more townspeople came out to see the visitors. Children pointed and whispered excitedly. Some waved. Zara waved back, copying the human gesture. A teenage girl with bright red hair ran up to them. She wore a black cape and plastic vampire teeth. Hi, I am Amy Sullivan. I am in the drama club at school. Are you really from outer space? Yes, said Zara. We are from a planet called Zephron. It is very far from here. That is so cool, Amy said. Are you going to stay for Halloween? You have to try trick-or-treating. It is the best part. What is trick-or-treating? Asked Zara. Amy grinned, showing her fake fangs. You go to people's houses and say trick-or-treat, and they give you candy. Everyone does it. Even adults sometimes. Ambassador Crix looked confused. You threaten tricks if people do not give you treats? This sounds like a form of extortion. No, Danny said quickly. It is just a saying. Nobody actually does tricks anymore. People give out candy happily. It is a tradition. Everyone enjoys it. The aliens looked at each other again. Scientist Venn made notes on his device. Security Officer Thal still seemed suspicious of everything. But Zara smiled at Amy. I would like to try this trick-or-treating. It sounds interesting. They reached the town hall. Mayor Baines showed the aliens to their rooms on the second floor. The rooms had been prepared with beds and furniture, though the aliens said they did not need beds the same way humans did. Before leaving them to rest, Lisa spoke to the group. Tomorrow morning I will come by to take you around town. You can see how people prepare for Halloween. Then tomorrow evening you will experience the actual celebration. I think you will find it very interesting. We look forward to it, said Ambassador Crix. Though I admit I am uncertain what to expect from this holiday. On Zephron we do not celebrate by displaying images of death or by frightening ourselves. That is what makes it worth learning about, said Danny. Every culture has different ways of celebrating. Halloween might seem strange to you now, but maybe by tomorrow night you will understand why we love it. As the humans left the town hall, Oren called out from the window. Excuse me, Sheriff Carter. Where might I obtain more of that chocolate? Danny laughed. Don't worry. Tomorrow you will have all the chocolate you can handle. That is a promise. That night the town of Maplewood buzzed with excitement. Aliens were sleeping in their town hall. Tomorrow would be the strangest Halloween anyone had ever seen. Parents tucked their children into bed and told them to be polite to the visitors. Store owners made sure they had extra candy ready. And in the town square the plastic skeleton swayed gently in the breeze, its grinning face lit by the streetlights below. Inside the town hall, the 5 Zephronians discussed what they had seen. Ambassador Crix recorded his notes for the High Council back home. These humans are peculiar. They celebrate fear. They destroy food for art. They give away valuable resources to children. I do not yet understand the purpose of this Halloween, but I am beginning to think it reveals something important about humanity. Tomorrow we will learn more. Zara looked out the window at the decorated streets below. I think it looks fun, she said quietly. Maybe humans know something about joy that we have forgotten. In his corner, Oren unwrapped another chocolate bar that he had saved from Lisa's basket. He took a small bite and smiled. Whatever this Halloween was about, he was already becoming a fan. The morning sun shone bright over Maplewood. Halloween day had arrived. Lisa Monroe walked up the steps of the town hall, carrying a large coffee thermos and a bag of fresh donuts. She wondered if aliens ate donuts. Only one way to find out. The Zephronians were already awake and waiting in the lobby. They did not seem to need much sleep. Ambassador Crix stood by the window, watching children walk to school in their Halloween costumes. Scientist Venn was taking readings with his devices. Security Officer Thal stood guard at the door. Zara and Oren were examining a bowl of candy corn that someone had left on the front desk. "Good morning," Lisa said cheerfully. "Are you ready to learn about Halloween?" "Good morning, Miss Monroe," said Ambassador Crix. "We are ready." "We have many questions, I bet you do," Lisa smiled. "First, let me show you around town. You will see how people prepare for tonight." They left the town hall and walked down Main Street. Every shop window was decorated. Some had fake spiderwebs. Others had paper ghosts hanging from the ceiling. The bakery had cookies shaped like bats and pumpkins. The hardware store had a huge display of Halloween lights and decorations. Scientist Venn stopped at every window. He took pictures and made notes. "This is remarkable. Your entire community participates in this holiday. It is not just a few individuals." "That is right," said Lisa. "Halloween is for everyone. Young people, old people, everyone joins in. It brings the town together." They reached the costume shop. Amy Sullivan was working behind the counter. She waved excitedly when she saw them. "You came. Wait until you see all the costumes we have." The shop was crowded with racks of colorful outfits. There were vampire capes, superhero suits, princess dresses, and monster masks. The aliens walked slowly through the aisles, staring at everything. Zara stopped at a witch costume. She touched the black hat gently. "Why do humans dress as creatures that frighten them?" Amy picked up the witch hat and placed it on Zara's head. "Because it is fun. When you wear a costume, you can be anyone you want. For one night, you can pretend to be something different. It is like playing make-believe." Zara looked at herself in the mirror. The hat sat crooked on her head, but she smiled. "I like it. Do I look scary?" "You look perfect," Amy laughed. Security Officer Thal picked up a rubber monster mask. He studied it carefully. "This is meant to frighten people? It looks fake." "That is the point," said Lisa. "Everyone knows it is fake. That is why it is fun. The fear is not real. It is pretend fear." Thal shook his head slowly. "I do not understand the appeal of pretend fear, but I will observe and learn." From the costume shop, they walked to the edge of town where Greg Phillips owned a farm. The farm had a large pumpkin patch. Hundreds of orange pumpkins sat in rows across the field. Families were walking through the patch, picking out pumpkins to take home. Greg saw them coming and waved. He was a big man with a red beard and a friendly smile. "Welcome. You must be our visitors from space. Come on in. Want to pick some pumpkins?" "What do we do with pumpkins?" asked Ambassador Crix. "You carve them," said Greg. "Here, I will show you." Greg took them to a barn where several families were carving pumpkins at long tables. He grabbed a pumpkin and a carving knife. "First you cut off the top. Then you scoop out all the seeds and guts inside. Then you carve a face into the pumpkin, any face you want." He worked quickly, his knife cutting smooth curves into the orange flesh. Soon a grinning face appeared on the pumpkin. Greg placed a candle inside and lit it. The face glowed. "See? A jack-o'-lantern. Now you try." Zara stepped forward eagerly. Amy helped her pick a pumpkin and showed her how to draw a face on it first. Zara decided on a simple smiling face. She carefully cut along the lines Amy had drawn. It took her a while, but finally she had carved her first jack-o'-lantern. "I made this," Zara said, looking proud. "It is art from a vegetable exactly," said Greg with a laugh. "You are getting it." Scientist Venn examined the pumpkin seeds that had been scooped out. "What happens to these?" "We roast them and eat them," said Greg. "They are actually pretty good. Want to try some?" He handed Venn a small bowl of roasted pumpkin seeds. Venn ate one carefully. His eyes widened. "So you use both the inside and the outside of the pumpkin. This is more logical than I thought." Oren was already eating a handful of the seeds. "These are good, but I still prefer chocolate." Next, Lisa took them back to the town square. The festival was being set up. Workers were putting up tents and booths. There would be games, food stands, and a big stage for the costume contest. Children ran around excitedly, too pumped up to sit still. Mayor Baines met them there. He looked less nervous today. "Everything is almost ready. Tonight will be wonderful. You picked a good year to visit." Security Officer Thal was looking at the game booths. He pointed at one booth where plastic swords hung on the wall. "Are those weapons?" Danny Carter walked over. He had been helping set up the booths. "Those are toys. They are made of foam and plastic. They cannot hurt anyone. Kids win them by playing games." Thal picked up a foam sword and bent it easily. "I see. Your people make weapons harmless for children to play with. Interesting." For lunch, Lisa took the aliens to a small candy shop owned by Helen Price. Helen was an old woman with white hair and kind eyes. She had owned the shop for 40 years and knew everything about Halloween candy. "Welcome, welcome," Helen said. "I heard we had special visitors. Come in and look around." The shop was full of candy. Jars of colorful gummies lined the shelves. Boxes of chocolate bars were stacked by the register. Lollipops in every flavor filled a large barrel. The smell of sugar hung sweet in the air. "This is overwhelming," said Ambassador Crix, looking at all the choices. "Try some samples," Helen offered. She held out a tray with different types of candy on it. Oren was the first to try. He picked up a piece of milk chocolate and put it in his mouth. His whole body seemed to relax. "This is wonderful. I wish to take many of these back to my planet." The other aliens tried different candies. Zara liked the gummy bears. Ven found the sour candy interesting. Even Thal admitted that the caramel was pleasant. Only Ambassador Crix hesitated. "Why do humans consume so much sugar?" Crix asked. "It seems unhealthy." "It is a treat," said Helen. "We do not eat this much candy every day, but on Halloween we let ourselves enjoy it. Life is not just about being healthy all the time. Sometimes you need to have fun and enjoy sweet things." Crix thought about this. He finally tried a piece of dark chocolate. "It is good," he admitted quietly. That afternoon, Amy took Zara shopping for a complete costume. She wanted Zara to fully experience Halloween. They went back to the costume shop and picked out a fairy costume with sparkly wings. Zara looked at herself in the mirror and laughed. "On Zephyron, no one dresses like this. We are always serious. This is very different." "Different can be good," said Amy. "Tonight you get to be someone else, someone magical." The other aliens were also convinced to choose costumes. Ambassador Crix picked a wizard robe because it looked dignified. Scientist Ven chose a mad scientist costume, finding it funny. Security Officer Thal selected knight armor, which made him feel protected. Oren dressed as a giant chocolate bar, which made everyone laugh. As the sun began to set, the town came alive with excitement. People put on their costumes. Jack-o'-lanterns were lit on every porch. The festival lights in the square turned on, glowing orange and purple against the darkening sky. The aliens stood together in their costumes, looking at the transformation happening around them. They no longer looked so different from the humans rushing past. In their Halloween outfits, they almost fit in. Lisa came to get them. She wore a witch costume similar to the one Zara had tried on earlier. "Are you ready? Halloween is about to begin." Ambassador Crix adjusted his wizard hat. "We are ready. Show us this Halloween you love so much." As they walked toward the neighborhoods where trick-or-treating was starting, Zara looked up at the sky. The first stars were appearing. Back on Zephyron, everything was orderly and planned. But here, on this strange human holiday, anything seemed possible. Oren clutched his empty candy bag tightly. He was ready, very ready. Danny noticed and smiled. "By the end of tonight, that bag is going to be very heavy." "I hope so," said Oren seriously. The real Halloween experience was about to begin, and the Zephronians had no idea just how memorable this night would become. Darkness had settled over Maplewood. Streetlights glowed yellow against the purple sky. Jack-o'-lanterns flickered on every porch. The night was cool and perfect for Halloween. Groups of costumed children filled the sidewalks, laughing and running from house to house. The Zephronians stood on the corner of Maple Street, dressed in their costumes. They looked nervous. Each held an empty bag for collecting candy. Lisa stood with them, along with Danny, Amy, and a group of excited children from the neighborhood. "Okay," Lisa said. "Trick-or-treating is simple. We walk up to a house. We ring the doorbell. When someone answers, we say trick-or-treat. They give us candy. We say thank you. Then we move to the next house. Easy, right?" Ambassador Crix adjusted his wizard robe. "It seems straightforward, but I still do not understand why people give away food for free." "Because it makes them happy to see children smile," said an 8-year-old boy dressed as a pirate. "It is fun to give out candy." The boy's simple answer seemed to satisfy Crix more than any adult explanation. He nodded slowly. "I see. Let us begin." They walked up to the first house. It belonged to the Murphy family. Orange lights lined the porch. A friendly scarecrow sat by the door. The children rang the doorbell. The alien stood behind them, watching carefully. Mrs. Murphy opened the door. She was holding a large bowl of candy. She smiled at the children. "Trick or treat," they all shouted together. "Happy Halloween," Mrs. Murphy said. She dropped candy into each child's bag. Then she saw the aliens. Her eyes widened. Oh my goodness. Are you the visitors from space? Yes, said Zara. We are learning about Halloween. Is it okay if we say trick or treat too? Of course, Mrs. Murphy said. She seemed thrilled. Go ahead. The 5 aliens spoke together, their voices formal and stiff. Trick or treat, Mrs. Murphy laughed warmly. She gave each of them extra candy. Welcome to Earth. I hope you love our Halloween. Thank you, said Ambassador Crix. He looked down at the candy in his bag. This is surprisingly pleasant. They moved to the next house and the next. At each door, the aliens became more comfortable with the tradition. Zara started to enjoy the excitement of not knowing what candy they would get. Oren began comparing which houses gave the best treats. Even Security Officer Thal started to relax a little. Scientist Ven was making observations. I am noticing a pattern. People who decorate their houses more elaborately tend to give out more candy. This creates an incentive system that encourages participation in the holiday. It is not about incentives, Amy said. People just like making others happy. That is the whole point. They turned onto Oak Street. At the end of the block, one house stood out from all the others. It was covered in decorations. Fake fog rolled across the yard. Red lights made everything look spooky. Mechanical zombies moved back and forth. Scary music played from hidden speakers. That is Greg's haunted house, Danny said. It is famous around here. People come from other towns to see it. Want to try it? The children cheered and ran toward the house. The aliens followed more slowly. Security Officer Thal moved to the front of the group, his protective instincts activating. Is this safe? Thal asked. Completely safe, Danny promised. It is all special effects and actors. Nothing can actually hurt you. They entered through a dark tunnel. The fog was thick. Suddenly a figure jumped out from the shadows. It was a person dressed as a zombie moaning loudly. The children screamed and laughed at the same time. Thal immediately stepped in front of the other aliens, his hand reaching for his device. Stop, do not come closer. The zombie actor froze. He pulled off his mask. Whoa, sorry. Just part of the show. No harm meant. Danny put a hand on Thal's shoulder. It is okay. This is what I meant by pretend fear. The zombie is not real. It is a person in a costume trying to give us a fun scare. Thal lowered his hand. I apologize. I am not used to threats that are not actual threats. The actor grinned. No problem, man. Want to continue? I promise to scare you less. They moved deeper into the haunted house. There were more actors, more special effects, more scares, but now the aliens watched the children instead of the scary things. They saw how the children screamed, then laughed. How they grabbed each other's hands. How they ran through rooms but came back for more. Ambassador Crix had a sudden realization. They know they are safe. The fear is controlled. They face something scary, survive it, and feel stronger. This is a form of training, or it is just fun, said Amy with a smile. Sometimes things do not need a deep reason. They are just enjoyable. At the exit, Greg was waiting with a huge bowl of full-size candy bars. He was dressed as a vampire with fake blood on his cape. Hey, you made it through. What did you think? It was disturbing yet intriguing, said Scientist Ven. I believe I understand the appeal now. The adrenaline response combined with the knowledge of safety creates a unique emotional experience. Greg laughed. Sure, whatever you said. Here, have some candy. You guys are great sports. He dropped large chocolate bars into each of their bags. Oren stared at his candy bar like it was treasure. This is the best night ever, he whispered. They continued trick-or-treating for another hour. The aliens met dozens of people. Everyone was friendly. Everyone wanted to talk to them. Some people took photos. Children asked questions about space. Adults thanked them for visiting Earth. Zara walked next to Amy, their candy bags growing heavier. On Zephyron, we do not have anything like this. We have celebrations, but they are formal. Serious. Everyone wears the same clothes and follows the same rules. That sounds boring, Amy said honestly. Zara laughed. It is boring. I never realized it until now. Halloween is messy and loud and strange, but it is also wonderful. Everyone is so happy. By the time they finished trick-or-treating, all 5 aliens had bags full of candy. Their costumes were slightly crooked from all the walking. They looked tired but happy. Even Ambassador Crix had a small smile on his face. Danny checked his watch. The festival in the town square is starting soon. Want to head over there? There are games, music, and a costume contest. A contest? Asked Zara. Can we enter? Absolutely, said Lisa. You are in costume, and that is all you need. They walked back to the town square. The festival was in full swing. Hundreds of people filled the area. Music played from the stage. The smell of caramel apples and hot cider drifted through the air. Colorful lights hung everywhere, making everything glow. Ambassador Crick stopped walking. He looked around at the scene. All of these people came together to celebrate. Not because they had to. Not for any practical reason. Just for joy. "That is right," said Danny. "That is what makes Halloween special. It brings people together. It lets them forget their worries for one night and just have fun." "On Zephron," Crick said quietly, "we have forgotten how to do this. We focus on efficiency and logic. We have lost something important." "Maybe you can bring it back," suggested Lisa. "Take what you learn here and share it with your people." Crick nodded slowly. "Perhaps I will try." Oren was not paying attention to this conversation. He was already heading toward a booth that sold chocolate-covered treats. The others followed him, smiling. The aliens were not just learning about Halloween anymore. They were living it and loving it. The night was still young, and the best parts of Halloween were yet to come. The costume contest would start soon. The bonfire would be lit. Stories would be told. And 5 aliens from another world would discover that joy, laughter, and community were universal languages that needed no translation. As Zara adjusted her fairy wings and smiled at the crowd around her, she realized something important. Halloween was not just about costumes and candy. It was about belonging, about sharing happiness with others, about being part of something bigger than yourself. Those were lessons worth bringing back to Zephron. Those were treasures more valuable than any technology, and she was only halfway through her first Halloween. The best was still ahead. The town square was alive with energy. People in costumes danced to music. Children ran between game booths, their laughter filling the air. The smell of popcorn, candy apples, and pumpkin spice mixed together. Overhead, strings of orange and purple lights swayed gently in the breeze. The Zephronians stood at the edge of the festival, taking it all in. Their bags of candy hung heavy at their sides. Their costumes were now rumpled and comfortable instead of stiff and strange. They no longer looked like aliens trying to blend in. They looked like participants. "Come on," Amy said, grabbing Zara's hand. "You have to try the games. That is half the fun of the festival." They walked to the first game booth. It was the ring toss. Players had to throw rings onto bottles to win prizes. A teenage boy was running the booth. He grinned when he saw the aliens. "Want to try? 3 rings for 1 ticket." Lisa handed tickets to each of the Zephronians. "Go ahead. It is harder than it looks." Scientist Ven went first. He studied the bottles carefully. He pulled out a small device and pointed it at them. "I am calculating the optimal angle and force required. That is cheating," a little girl in a princess costume called out. Ven put the device away quickly, looking embarrassed. "You are correct. I apologize. I will try without assistance." He threw the rings. The first 2 missed, but the third one landed perfectly around a bottle. The crowd watching cheered. Ven looked surprised and pleased. "I did it without calculations." The booth operator handed him a small stuffed bat. "Nice job, here is your prize." Ven held the stuffed bat carefully. "This is mine? I won this through skill and chance?" "That is right," said Danny with a smile. Ven looked at the bat for a long moment. Then he smiled, a real smile. "This is quite satisfying." At the next booth, they found the apple bobbing station. A large metal tub filled with water held floating apples. Players had to grab an apple with their teeth, no hands allowed. Several children were already trying, getting their faces wet and giggling. "This looks undignified," said Security Officer Thal. "It is supposed to be." Amy laughed. "That is the fun part. Come on, Zara, you try." Zara knelt by the tub. She bent down toward the water. The apple kept slipping away from her. She got water up her nose and sputtered. The children watching laughed, but it was not mean laughter. They cheered her on. "You can do it." A boy shouted, "Chase the apple to the side." Zara tried again. This time she caught the apple between her teeth. She lifted her head, water dripping from her face, the apple held firmly. The crowd clapped and cheered. Zara laughed, her eyes bright with joy. "I got it. I actually got it." Ambassador Crix watched this with growing understanding. The game is not about winning. It is about trying, about looking silly and not caring, about sharing the experience with others. Now you are getting it, said Mayor Baines, who had joined them. Halloween teaches us to not take ourselves too seriously. Life is better when you can laugh, especially at yourself. They moved through more game booths. Oren tried the candy corn toss and became surprisingly competitive. Thal threw balls at stacked cans and knocked them all down with precise aim. Even Ambassador Crix tried the fishing game, using a small pole to hook rubber ducks from a stream of water. At 8 o'clock, the loudspeaker crackled. Attention everyone! The costume contest will begin in 10 minutes on the main stage. All participants, please make your way to the stage area. Are we really entering this contest? Asked Thal. Absolutely, said Amy. You guys are the best group costume here. Trust me. They walked to the stage. Many other people were already there. Children in elaborate costumes, adults in funny outfits, teenagers in scary makeup. The Zephronians lined up with everyone else. Mayor Baines took the stage. He had changed into a vampire costume, complete with a black cape and fake fangs. Welcome to the annual Maplewood Halloween Costume Contest. We have some amazing costumes this year. Let us start with the children's category. One by one, children walked across the stage. A boy dressed as a robot with boxes covered in aluminum foil. A girl in a homemade dragon costume with sparkly scales. Twins dressed as salt and pepper shakers. Each got huge applause from the crowd. Then came the adult categories. A woman dressed as a full bookshelf, with actual books attached to her outfit. A man in an incredible werewolf costume with professional makeup. A group dressed as different types of pizza. Finally, the announcer called for group costumes. And now a very special group. Please welcome our visitors from another planet, who have joined us to experience Halloween for the first time. The Zephronians walked onto the stage. The crowd went wild with applause and cheers. Cameras flashed. Children pointed and waved. The aliens stood in a line, looking nervous but proud in their costumes. Mayor Baines spoke into the microphone. I have to say, these are the most dedicated method actors I have ever seen. They have really committed to their roles. The crowd laughed. They thought it was part of the act. The aliens looked at each other and decided to play along. They waved and bowed slightly. The cheering got even louder. After all the contestants had appeared on stage, the judges deliberated. There were 3 judges, the librarian, the owner of the bakery, and the high school principal. They whispered together, pointing at different contestants and making notes. Finally, Mayor Baines returned to the microphone. We have the results. For the group costume category, in 3rd place, the pizza party group. 2nd place goes to our special visitors dressed as fantasy creatures. The Zephronians looked confused. We won something? Sarah asked. You got 2nd place, Amy said excitedly. Go up and get your prize. They walked back onto the stage. The mayor handed them a trophy and gift certificates to local shops. The crowd cheered again. As they stood there holding their prize, Oren leaned over to Crix. I believe this is what humans call winning. It feels good, it does, Crix agreed. It really does. After the contest, the festival moved to its final event. A large bonfire was lit in the center of the square. People gathered around it in a big circle. The flames reached high into the night sky, crackling and popping. The warmth felt good against the cool October air. Greg stepped forward. He cleared his throat dramatically. It is time for ghost stories. Who wants to hear a scary tale? Everyone cheered. People sat down on the ground or on hay bales that had been placed around the fire. The Zephronians sat with Danny, Lisa, Amy, and their other new friends. Greg began telling a story about the old Harvest Moon farm outside of town. He spoke of strange lights seen in the fields at night, of sounds with no source, of shadows that moved on their own. His voice rose and fell. He paused at just the right moments. The children leaned forward, eyes wide. When he reached the scary part, he suddenly jumped forward and yelled. Half the audience screamed. Then everyone burst out laughing, including the people who had screamed. Ambassador Crix observed all of this carefully. The story is not real. Everyone knows it is not real. Yet they still react with fear, and then they laugh at themselves for being afraid. It is a social bonding exercise. Or it is just fun, Lisa said again, smiling. Perhaps, said Crix. But I am starting to understand that fun is more important than I gave it credit for. Fun brings people together. It creates memories. It makes life worth living. After Greg finished his story, other people shared tales. Some funny, some scary, some both. Then, to everyone's surprise, Zara raised her hand. May I share a story from Zephron? Please do, said Greg. We would love to hear it. Zara stood up. She told a story from her home world about explorers who ventured into unknown territory, about facing strange creatures and mysterious phenomena, about being scared but continuing anyway, about discovering that courage was not the absence of fear but moving forward despite it. The crowd listened quietly. When she finished, they clapped. Children asked questions about her planet. Adults thanked her for sharing. Zara sat down looking happy and proud. As the bonfire burned lower and the night grew late, people began to leave. They said goodnight to each other. Parents carried sleepy children home. Teenagers lingered, not wanting the night to end. The Zephronians sat with their small group of human friends watching the fire. They were quiet, lost in thought. Finally, Oren spoke. This has been the best day of my life. I never knew life could be this enjoyable. Same here, said Zara softly. Ambassador Crick stood up. He looked at Danny, Lisa, and the others. Thank you, all of you. You have taught us something valuable today, something we had lost on our world. The importance of joy, of play, of community. We will not forget this Halloween. Danny shook his hand. You are welcome here anytime. Maplewood will always be happy to see you. As they walked back to the town hall, Oren carried his bag of candy like it was precious cargo. Zara still wore her fairy wings. Ven clutched his stuffed bat. Thal walked with less tension in his shoulders. And Ambassador Crix wore a smile. Halloween was ending, but the memories they made would last forever. And somewhere in the distance, the harvest moon hung full and bright in the sky, watching over the little town that had just taught 5 aliens what it meant to truly celebrate. Morning came too quickly. The sun rose over Maplewood on November 1st. The town looked tired but happy. Paper decorations hung crooked on buildings. Leftover candy wrappers tumbled down the street in the breeze. The Halloween magic was fading, but the memories remained bright. Inside the town hall, the Zephronians were packing their belongings. Their spaceship was scheduled to depart at noon. Ambassador Crick stood by the window, looking out at the town that had changed them so much in just 2 days. Scientist Ven was reviewing his notes and recordings. I have collected extensive data on human social behavior and cultural practices. The High Council will find this information fascinating. It is more than just data, said Zara. What we experienced here cannot be fully captured in reports. We felt something. That is what matters. Oren was carefully packing his candy into a special container. He had eaten some, but he wanted to bring most of it back to show others. Security Officer Thal stood nearby, more relaxed than he had been when they arrived. Even he had to admit the visit had been pleasant. A knock came at the door. Danny entered, followed by Lisa, Amy, and Greg. We came to say goodbye. But first, something strange happened this morning. Our sensors picked up unusual energy readings. Ambassador Crix turned quickly. Unusual readings? What kind? Danny pulled out his phone and showed them a map. Coming from the old Harvest Moon farm, the place from Greg's ghost story last night. Probably nothing, but we thought you might want to check it out before you leave. You know, with your technology. Scientist Ven immediately became interested. We should investigate. It could be important. They all drove out to the old farm in 2 vehicles. The farm sat on a hill outside of town. It had been abandoned for years. The farmhouse was falling apart. The barn leaned to one side. Dead vines covered everything. In the morning light, it looked sad rather than scary. Ven pulled out his scanning device. The readings are definitely unusual. The energy signature is coming from the barn. Security Officer Thal moved to the front of the group. Allow me to investigate first. I will ensure it is safe. They approached the barn carefully. The door was half open. Thal pushed it wider and stepped inside. The others followed. Sunlight streamed through holes in the roof. Dust floated in the air. Old farming equipment sat covered in rust and cobwebs. The energy is strongest in the back corner, Ven said, following his device. They found what he was looking for. An old electrical transformer was attached to the wall. It was sparking occasionally, making small buzzing sounds. Greg laughed. That is your mysterious energy source? Just old electrical equipment malfunctioning? It appears so, said Ven, looking slightly disappointed. There is no danger. Just outdated human technology breaking down. Danny pulled out his radio. I will call the power company. They need to come disconnect this before it causes a fire. While Danny made the call, Amy explored the barn. She found a door hidden behind some old hay bales. "Hey, there is another room back here." They pushed the hay aside and opened the door. Inside was a small storage room, but instead of farm equipment, it was filled with old Halloween decorations. Boxes and boxes of them. Vintage costumes hung on hooks. Ancient jack-o'-lantern patterns were pinned to the walls. Photographs covered a bulletin board. Lisa picked up one of the photos carefully. "Look at these. They are from Halloween celebrations decades ago. This must have belonged to the family that used to live here." The photos showed happy families in costumes. Children carrying bags of candy. Groups gathered around bonfires. The images were old and faded, but the joy in them was clear. Ambassador Crick studied the photos closely. These images span many years. Different people, different times, but the same celebration. Halloween has been bringing people together for generations. "That is what tradition does," said Lisa. "It connects us to the past and to each other. These people are gone now, but their love of Halloween lives on in the town." Zara touched one of the old costumes gently. "On Zephron, we have lost this. We focus on the future so much that we forgot about the past. We forgot about the simple things that connect people across time." Greg looked out the barn door at the bright morning sky. "You know what is funny? I made up that ghost story about this place, but now it really does have something special here. Not ghosts, but memories. That is better than any ghost story." They carefully packed up the Halloween items to take back to town. The Historical Society would love them. These pieces of the past deserve to be preserved and shared. As they left the farm, Ambassador Cricks paused and looked back. "The Harvest Moon incident," he said. "That is what we should call this in our report. Not because of the farm, but because of the harvest moon we saw during our visit. It watched over our experience of Halloween. It seems fitting." "I like that," said Danny. "The harvest moon incident. It sounds like a real adventure." They drove back to town. By the time they reached the square, word had spread that the aliens were leaving. People had gathered to say goodbye. Children waved. Shop owners came out of their stores. Even people who had not met the Zephronians showed up to wish them well. Mayor Baines stepped forward with a large box. "We put together some farewell gifts for you. Candy, of course. Photos from last night. And certificates making you honorary citizens of Maplewood." Ambassador Cricks accepted the box. His black eyes looked emotional if such a thing was possible. "We came here to study your customs. We leave as your friends. This town has taught us more than we ever expected to learn." The crowd clapped. Children ran forward with handmade cards and drawings. One girl handed Zara a picture she had drawn of Zara in her fairy costume. "For you to remember us." Zara took the picture, her hands shaking slightly. "I will treasure this always, and I promise to come back next Halloween. I want to see how you celebrate again." "You better," said Amy, hugging her. "You are part of our Halloween tradition now." They walked to the spaceship. The Zephronian stopped at the entrance and turned back to face the crowd. Oren held up his container of candy. "I am bringing chocolate to my planet. I will tell everyone about this amazing food." The crowd laughed warmly. Scientist Ven held up his stuffed bat. "I won this through my own effort." It represents the value of participating rather than just observing. Security Officer Thal spoke next. "I learned that not everything strange is dangerous. Sometimes strange things are wonderful. I will try to remember that." Zara held up the drawing. "I learned that joy does not need a reason. You can celebrate just because you want to. That is a powerful lesson." Finally, Ambassador Cricks spoke. "We came seeking knowledge. We found something more important. We found connection, understanding, friendship. We discovered that despite our differences, we share the same need for community, celebration, and joy. Halloween showed us that. Maplewood showed us that. You all showed us that." He paused, then added, "We will propose to the High Council that Zephron establish its own version of Halloween, a day for fun, costumes, and bringing people together. We will call it the Festival of the Harvest Moon in honor of our time here." The crowd cheered loudly. Danny stepped forward and shook each alien's hand. "The door to your ship is always open here. Maplewood is your second home now." The Zephronians boarded their ship. The door closed behind them. The engines hummed to life. Slowly, the ship lifted off the ground. It rose higher and higher, hovering above the town square. Then something wonderful happened. The ship's lights began to flash in a pattern. Long and short bursts. Danny watched carefully, then started to laugh. "They are sending us a message in Morse code." "What does it say?" Amy asked. Danny smiled. It says thank you and happy Halloween. The crowd cheered one final time. The ship rose higher into the blue sky, becoming smaller and smaller until it was just a bright point of light. Then it was gone. Lisa put her arm around Amy's shoulders. That was the best Halloween ever. Mayor Baines was already thinking ahead. Next year's going to be even bigger. Word will spread about this. People from all over will want to come to Maplewood for Halloween. We need to start planning now, Greg laughed. And I need to make my haunted house even better. Got to impress the aliens when they come back. As the crowd began to scatter, going back to their normal lives, Danny stood in the square alone for a moment. He looked up at the sky where the ship had disappeared. Who would have thought that aliens would teach us to appreciate our own traditions more? But that was exactly what happened. The Zephronians had reminded Maplewood why Halloween mattered. Not just for the candy or costumes, but for the community it created, for the joy it spread, for the connections it strengthened. And somewhere far above Earth, 5 aliens were heading home with bags of candy, stuffed bats, friendship certificates, and hearts full of memories. They had experienced Halloween for the first time, and they would never forget it. The Harvest Moon incident became famous, not just in Maplewood but across the world. It was proof that joy, laughter, and celebration were universal, that differences could be bridged through shared experiences, that sometimes the best way to understand each other was to simply have fun together. And every Halloween after that, when the harvest moon rose full and bright over Maplewood, people looked up and wondered if their alien friends were looking at the same moon from their distant world, remembering, smiling, maybe even celebrating their own version of Halloween. Because some lessons are too important to. 1 year had passed since the harvest moon incident. October had returned to Maplewood, and with it came preparations for what the town was now calling the biggest Halloween celebration in its history. Danny Carter stood in the town square, watching workers set up stages and booths. The festival had grown 3 times larger than last year. News crews from across the country were coming. Hotels in neighboring towns were fully booked. Everyone wanted to see if the aliens would really return. Lisa Monroe walked up beside him carrying a clipboard. The schedule is packed. We have entertainment from noon until midnight. Greg has expanded his haunted house. The costume contest has 500 entries already. This is going to be incredible if they come back, Danny said quietly. We have not heard from them in 6 months. What if they change their minds? They will come, Amy said, joining them. She was now a senior in high school and had been put in charge of the welcome committee, Zara promised. And I believe her. The past year had changed Maplewood in good ways. The old Harvest Moon farm had been restored and turned into a museum, dedicated to Halloween history and interstellar friendship. The decorations they found in the barn were displayed proudly. Tour groups came every weekend. Mayor Baines had used the attention to improve the town. New businesses had opened. The school got new computers. The library was expanded. Maplewood was thriving, all because 5 aliens had decided to visit for Halloween. But more important than the economic benefits was what the town had learned. They had learned that being different was not scary, that strangers could become friends, that sharing their traditions with others made those traditions more meaningful. October 30th arrived. The day before Halloween, people lined the streets hoping to see a spaceship. News cameras pointed at the sky. Children held welcome signs. But as the sun began to set, no ship appeared. Maybe tomorrow, Lisa said, trying to stay positive. Amy refused to give up hope. They will come. I know they will. That night, Danny could not sleep. He kept thinking about the Zephronians, about Ambassador Crix's promise to bring Halloween to their world, about Oren's love of chocolate, about Zara's joy in her fairy costume. Those memories felt precious now, like something that might have been a dream. Halloween morning came with clear blue skies. The town buzzed with last-minute preparations. People put on costumes. Vendors set up food stands. Musicians tuned their instruments. But everyone kept glancing at the sky, hoping. At noon, the festival officially began. Families poured into the town square. Children ran between game booths. The smell of caramel apples and roasted pumpkin seeds filled the air. It was a perfect Halloween celebration. But something felt missing. Amy stood at the welcome booth she had decorated with pictures from last year's visit. Her smile was forced. Maybe they got delayed, Space travel probably has complications. Danny put a hand on her shoulder. They might not come, Amy. But that does not make last year any less special. We still have those memories, I know, Amy said. But I really wanted to see them again. The afternoon passed. Games were played. Prizes were won. Music filled the air. People were having fun. But the organizers kept checking the sky with growing disappointment. Then, just as the sun began to set, a child pointed upward and screamed. Look at the sky. Everyone looked up. A bright light was moving across the darkening sky. But it was not just one light. It was three. 3 spaceships were descending toward Maplewood. The crowd erupted in cheers. Amy jumped up and down, tears streaming down her face. They came back. They really came back. The ships landed in the town square, which had been kept clear for exactly this possibility. The doors opened. Ambassador Crick stepped out first, wearing a wizard costume identical to the one from last year. Behind him came Scientist Ven, Security Officer Thal, Junior Diplomat Zara, and Communications Specialist Oren. But they were not alone. Dozens of other Zephronians emerged from the 3 ships. Some were young, some were old. All wore Halloween costumes. There were vampires and superheroes, witches and monsters, fairies and ghosts. The crowd went wild with applause and cheering. Danny pushed through to reach them. You came back, and you brought friends. Ambassador Crick smiled widely. Of course we came back. We promised. And yes, we brought others who wanted to experience Halloween for themselves. My family is here. Scientists from our university, artists, teachers, everyone wanted to see what changed us so much last year. Zara ran to Amy and hugged her. I missed you. I have thought about you in this town every single day. Amy hugged her back, still crying happy tears. I have so much to show you. We made everything even better this year. Oren was looking around eagerly. Where is the candy? I have been dreaming about chocolate for 12 months. Helen Price, the candy shop owner, stepped forward with a huge bag. I saved special treats just for you, Oren. Welcome home. Oren took the bag like it was made of gold. Home. Yes. This place feels like home. Mayor Baines took the microphone on the main stage. Ladies and gentlemen, humans and aliens alike, welcome to the 2nd annual Maplewood Interstellar Halloween Festival. Let the celebration begin. The festival exploded with energy. The new Zephronians were led through all the Halloween traditions. They went trick-or-treating through the neighborhoods. They visited Greg's expanded haunted house, which now had alien-themed rooms specifically for the occasion. They played games at the festival booths. They tasted every kind of candy and Halloween treat Maplewood had to offer. But the most special moment came during the bonfire that evening. Ambassador Crick stood before the crowd with his entire delegation. We have news to share. The Zephronian High Council has officially declared the last day of October as the Festival of the Harvest Moon. Our entire planet now celebrates a holiday inspired by your Halloween. The crowd cheered. Cricks continued. We dress in costumes. We share sweet foods. We tell stories around fires. We bring communities together to celebrate joy and imagination. You taught us how to live more fully. That is a debt we can never repay. Danny stood and spoke for the town. You do not owe us anything. Friendship is not a debt. What you gave us was equally valuable. You reminded us why our traditions matter. You showed us that sharing our culture makes it richer, not weaker. You proved that connection is possible even across the stars. A young Zephronian child raised her hand. She was dressed as a princess. Excuse me, I am Crix's daughter. Can I ask a question? Of course, said Lisa warmly. The young alien spoke shyly. My father tells many stories about Maplewood. About the kindness here. About the fun. Can we come back every year? Can this be a regular tradition? Mayor Baines did not hesitate. Absolutely. From now on, every Halloween, Maplewood officially invites the people of Zephron to celebrate with us. This is your second home now. You are always welcome. The crowd erupted in cheers again. Human children and Zephronian children began playing together immediately, comparing costumes and candy. Adults from both worlds exchanged stories and laughter. The bonfire crackled, sending sparks into the night sky where the harvest moon watched over everything. Later that night, as the festival began to wind down, Danny and Ambassador Crick stood together watching the happy chaos. Danny spoke quietly. A year ago I was nervous about your visit. I did not know what to expect. I never imagined it would lead to this. Crix nodded. A year ago I thought humans were strange and illogical. Now I see that what I thought was illogical was actually wisdom. You understand that life is not just about survival or efficiency. It is about joy, connection, and shared experiences. Those are the things that make life worth living. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Crix added, I brought something for you. A gift from our world to yours. He pulled out a small crystal that glowed softly. This is a memory stone. It stores holographic recordings. I have recorded every moment of our visits to Maplewood. The laughter, the celebrations, the friendships formed. It will last forever. Future generations of both our peoples can watch these memories and remember how two different worlds came together through something as simple and wonderful as Halloween. Danny took the crystal carefully. This will go in the museum at Harvest Moon Farm, thank you. It is perfect. As the night ended and families began heading home, the Zephronians returned to their ships. But this time the goodbyes were not sad. Everyone knew they would see each other again next year. This was not an ending. It was a tradition being born. Amy and Zara exchanged communication devices so they could talk throughout the year. Oren left with enough chocolate to last him several months. Greg made the Zephronians promise to bring their families to his haunted house next year. Lisa invited them to send Zephronian children to a summer cultural exchange program. As the three spaceships lifted off into the night sky, their lights flashing in what everyone now recognized as a Morse code message, Danny translated for the crowd gathered below. See you next Halloween. Stay spooky, Earth. The crowd laughed and cheered one final time. The ships disappeared into the stars, and the harvest moon, full and bright, seemed to smile down on the little town that had become a bridge between two worlds. The harvest moon incident was no longer just a single event. It had become something bigger, a symbol of what was possible when different peoples met with open hearts and open minds, a reminder that the things we celebrate and the joy we share